Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So, long time no see. I know the COVID times have, affected me just like everyone else, but I am back and I'm super excited because I'm back at making content and I really do enjoy making these videos. And if you have any questions or any other ideas that you guys want me to talk about when it comes to branding and marketing, I would love to hear what you guys would like to see from me. But with that being said, today we are here to talk about how to find a business name. Now, this is definitely one of the questions that pop up quite often for me, especially when I coach new businesses that either are on the fence about a couple different names or they don't really know where to take it. And I can definitely see why. When we were naming our podcast Thriving Tides, it took us, I'm not gonna lie, about a month and a half to find our name. When I was naming my own business, for example, Summer Street Creative, it only took me a day. But that's the thing, is there's no designated timeline to find a name. Sometimes people think that it does only just take a day, but then sometimes it does take roughly about a month. And I really hope that this video will also provide a little bit of guidance if you're feeling really stuck when it comes to finding a name, because the thing is, it is really important when it comes to your business. That is the defining aspect of your business. You need a name for your business, especially if you're going to go online, you're going to create a website, you're going to create a logo, a whole identity. And again, when we always go back to branding, when you're developing your messaging, your voice, and your consistency, your name is very much attached to it. So to start out, I would highly suggest to sign up to my email subscribing list, because in there you will find the actual worksheet that I basically use for all my clients, for all the people that I coach as well. And it's nice to have a worksheet just because, especially if you're one of those people that you aren't really good at looking at a blank piece of paper and there's a little bit of intimidation in there, it's always nice to have a worksheet. And plus, worksheets are just fun. And the thing is too, if you do sign up to my email newsletter, A, I don't spam, which is always really good, and B, you also get pretty much all my freebies as well. And anytime I create a freebie or a worksheet, I send it straight to my subscribers as well. So you get a whole bunch of free tools and tips, which is really nice. So definitely subscribe today. I'll probably leave the link in the description down below for sure. But with that being said, I digress. I have to do it. We're going to get into basically how to start planning and thinking of creating a business name. So one thing that I definitely do suggest is go into a room or put in headphones and be in your own little space. Of course, if you're with business partners, you're going to want to bring them in as well. But go into a space where there's little distractions. Turn off your cell phone. Just kind of be with the thought that you're going to be creating a business name. Again, don't put the pressure on yourself to find a business name, but go in it with the intention of, hey, I'm going to do some brainstorming right now. So often we can kind of go into these little rabbit holes and all of a sudden we're distracted in finding a business name and we're just comparing everything. So I usually suggest, like, if you can get your hands on even like a whiteboard and writing this all down, you can follow the worksheet, but you can also bring it onto a whiteboard as well. And I do really suggest that. You're going to want to really define what your business is as well. So often we think that a name comes before exactly what our business is and what our promises to our customers. Think, okay, what am I delivering? Is my business aligned with my own goals? Because that's the thing too. So often companies end up pigeonholing themselves because they end up picking a name that is very specific to what they're doing. But then all of a sudden they've started to add more elements to their business and it just their name doesn't make sense anymore. And like I always say, it's so much more expensive to rebrand than it is to just start out with a really good concept. So take your time with it. Please don't feel pressured to get a business name right away. But that's why I do really suggest, before you even start, have a business plan, have a define exactly what it is that you're doing and your why in your business. And then I feel like it's so much easier to start putting all the pieces together. And I have noticed the more people try to be everything, how much harder it is to also create a business name as well. Sometimes when you do niche, it is easier to find a business name. The next thing that you're going to want to do is you're also going to look at your competitors and your potential customers. When you're looking at your potential customers, hopefully you've done a customer profile or avatar. You can actually see what is it that they're looking for in a business. And then when it comes to your competitors, you're looking at what's already been done and how can you make it better. Again, you don't want to find a business name that's a little bit too close to, say, a competitor, not only because it'd be more confusing for potential customers to differentiate between the two, but also because it's not really nice for the other customer or the other competitor as well. But you also want to make sure that whatever you're doing stands out. And that's the whole point of branding, is you're trying to differentiate yourself from the masses. Another thing that you're going to want to define before you start writing down a whole bunch of names is your brand specific elements. So, for example, if you were a very eco-friendly business, you might want to write down that you're an eco-friendly business. Or say you are a non-for-profit, you're going to write down that you're a non-for-profit. Again, this is to you kind of simplify and get a clear direction as to what your business is, so that when you do go to the process of writing down a whole bunch of ideas, that you come in knowing exactly what your business is. And the cool thing too is sometimes I've seen where people didn't think that they could add a brand specific element to their name, and it ends up being complete magic. Now the fun part. So on your big whiteboard or a blank piece of paper or on the worksheet, you're just gonna write down a shit ton of names that come to your mind. Now, I do recommend to never ever filter. Write down every single idea, even if you think it's stupid. The reason why I say that is because sometimes there may be a word that is really silly, but it could lead to another word, that could lead to another word, that could lead to another word. And so often we filter ourselves too much that we miss the magic when it comes to, going down that rabbit hole of, okay, this name is now building up onto this name. And I've seen it so many times in person because I have done the worksheet with companies as well, and it kind of lights up people and they realize, oh, I didn't even think about this keyword. And the thing is, when you are doing, if you ever get stuck and you are doing this exercise, another tip that you could do is open a dictionary. You can open Pinterest and type in what exactly you're doing. So if you're a product, you can type in that product. If you're a service, you can type in that service and see what other people are doing and other keywords that may come up. Again, we're not taking anybody's business name. We're just looking at the keywords that perhaps you may have missed or haven't thought of at that moment. And you can also look at other things such as books. You can go for a walk, get inspiration around you. Again, look at the things that you defined prior to starting the exercise. So maybe, again, there's might be something in your brand specific elements that kind of touches on what you should name your business, but then there could also be something in your customer avatars, a keyword that keeps popping up in your customer avatars that maybe connect to what you could put in your name. So after you've written a whole bunch down, you have about 3 to 4, possibly 5 that you really, really like and you're not too certain about. There's a couple things that you want to do before you fall in love with a specific name. First things first, you're going to want to make sure that it's available across everything. So you're going to want to go check your domain. So don't use GoDaddy. But go on something like HostGator. You can go on Google My Domains. That's what I usually use for finding my domain. And actually type in the whole entire URL. Now, another thing to keep in mind that I think some people do miss is look at the whole URL together. I have seen it a couple times where some people put 2 business names together, but in the middle it makes up a new word, and it's pretty bad sometimes. So definitely look into it a little bit and really see if there's anything that you could be missing. And the nice thing with that too is it kind of also filters your top like say 5 or 4, because usually 9 times out of 10 your business name is taken. Unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses out there, and a lot of names that have been claimed on domains. So then after you've gotten, say, out of that whole entire list, you're filtered down to 2 domain names, and that were available based on the names that you did collect. Now, all you have to do is then go onto social media and make sure that the handles are available. Chances are they may be taken as well, and if that's the case and both of them are taken, you might have to go back to the drawing board. Or you could have one that kind of made it through and you ended up just picking the one because it was available. And that kind of also makes the choice of decision much more easier, because you would be surprised at how many times people come up with business names and they really, really like it, but you fall in love with a business name. And again, I always have to bring it back to a personal story. When we were actually starting Thriving Tides, we had so many names that we absolutely loved, and I knew to check the URL, but I had fallen so deeply in love with these names and I already had logos in mind. And sure enough, when we went to go check it, it wasn't available either on social media or it wasn't available as a domain. So we had to go back to the drawing board. Luckily, we ended up again falling on Thriving Tides, and it's the most perfect name. I'm so happy with it. And that's the thing too, is if the end name that ends up being available doesn't call to you and it doesn't make you happy, go back to the drawing board. So often we feel like we have to pick the one that's available because there's limited options on domains and on social media. But the thing is, you can be happy about your name, and you need to be happy about your name because you're going to be repping it. Another thing you want to do too, so say you checked social media domain and you have a couple names that you really, really like, and they're all available and you're just having a really hard time deciding, definitely always go to your friends or family or even a bystander in your life or a coworker or something and kind of vet it through them. See what they think. You'd be surprised how often a different idea may come up from them, or something that you may have not thought of would come up. So there's a business name that I had thought about a while back before Summer Street Creative, and I had actually taken it to a friend, and apparently there was an alternative meaning to the word that I used, and it's a good thing I didn't choose it because I may have offended some people, you know? So it just goes to show that you should always kind of have a second opinion on everything, and if you are going to like your family and friends, make sure to tell them to actually be honest and give good feedback. So often, especially if you go in it saying, I really love these names, what do you think? Sometimes our family members or our friends are wanting to just be supportive, which is great, but they also won't give you the honest feedback. So tell them that you actually want the honest feedback as well. Another quick thing that I do want to mention is you don't want it to be too long either. And again, we want to make sure that it's super user friendly. So for example, if your business name is like super long and it's a lot to type in, guaranteed someone's gonna possibly misspell it, or if it's weirdly spelled but it's not the correct spelling, that could when people are looking for you on, say, Google, they might find something completely different, or they might have a hard time locating you. Again, when you're going back to like the user experience, you want to make sure that it's very clear, very straightforward. That's when, like, if you are going with a name that is a little bit more abstract, you might have to do a little bit more marketing as to how to define your name, how to say your name, because the thing is, if nobody knows how to actually spell it and they're just searching it, it might be hard to actually find you, and that's the worst case scenario. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to find you. And there's nothing wrong per se with abstract names, but again, you do have to do a little bit more marketing as to what it is, because it doesn't build that instant trust as, say, X service. And another tip, I know I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but you do want to make sure that you future-proof your name in the long run. So if you're going to be a business that just makes candles, you can totally have Candles by Sarah, right? You can totally do that. But if you plan on doing candles, incense, and lotion, then it doesn't really make sense to just have candles in your name, right? It could be Home Goods by Sarah. You know, there's different ways you can name that doesn't pigeonhole you into one thing. Niching isn't bad. Usually niching is much easier, especially when it comes to marketing. But when it comes to building a name, sometimes it is easier to make it a little bit more broad so that you do have a little bit of wiggle room. And those were just a few of my tips. The thing is, guys, just have fun with it. The more pressure you put on yourself, the more you're not going to come up with a really good name. And it's funny because I always tell people, do the exercise, but leave it. Have a notepad places, make sure that you have access to even like your phone to write down name ideas and kind of sit with it for a little bit. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves that we don't end up actually finding a name because it's all you can think about. You'd be surprised how often I hear people say that they came up with a name that when they were taking a shower, you know. And it's funny because even with Thriving Tides, I was at the beach looking at the tide, and that's when it kind of came up that we knew that we wanted thriving in our name, and there was a tide right there. So it could also be what's going around in your environment as well. And it was just, you know, taking the step away and not thinking about putting the pressure of defining, which I know it can be very tricky because I know you probably want to get your service, your product, everything out there right away. I totally understand. But at the same time, this is something that's really important that I do feel like you do need to spend a little bit of time on and not to rush it as well. But again, with that being said, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and your opinions on it. If this helped you, please let me know. Again, if you need the worksheet, please sign up to my email newsletter and yeah, you will get it sent to you right away. And yeah, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. And please subscribe to my channel. It would mean a lot. And yeah, take care everyone. Bye.